3 days ago, JUICE detected something new on 3I Atlas, something that wasn't there before, or something that was there before and is only now being detected because JUICE is close enough to see it. A jet, emanating from the object's surface, pointing directly away from the sun. On the surface, that sounds almost normal. Comets produce jets. When a comet approaches the sun, solar radiation heats its surface, vaporizes volatile materials, and drives them outward in streams. Anti-sun jets, jets pointing away from the sun, are a standard feature of cometary activity. They are driven by solar radiation pressure. They are well understood. They are natural. Except this jet is not natural, and the reasons it is not natural are not subtle. They are visible in the JUICE data. They are measurable. They are the kind of thing that, if you show them to any astrophysicist with knowledge of cometary physics, produces one of two reactions, either a very long silence or the immediate and urgent need to find a different explanation. Because the jet from 3I Atlas is not pointing away from the sun because of solar radiation pressure, the object is too far from the sun for solar radiation to drive a jet of this intensity. The jet is more energetic than anything solar radiation could produce at this distance by a factor that the JUICE data quantifies precisely. The jet is not composed of the volatile materials that cometary jets are made of, and the jet is not random. It is coherent, focused, directional in a way that natural jets are not. This is not a comet doing what comets do. This is something producing a directed, high-energy emission from its surface, deliberately, in a specific direction, for reasons that nobody in the official version is explaining. I'm going to explain them. Let's go. What an anti-sun jet is and why this one is wrong. Let me start with the science. Because the anti-sun jet is being used in the official framing as evidence that 3I Atlas is a comet, and I want to be precise about why that framing fails. Comets produce anti-sun jets through a process called outgassing. As a comet approaches the sun, solar radiation heats the comet's surface. Beneath the surface are volatile materials, water ice, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, that vaporize when heated. This vaporized material erupts outward, carrying dust with it, forming the coma and tails that make comets visible. The anti-sun direction of these jets is driven partly by solar radiation pressure, pushing the emitted material away from the sun, and partly by the geometry of how the subsurface volatiles are heated and escape. This process is well understood. We have studied dozens of comets at close range. We know what cometary outgassing looks like. We know its composition. We know its energy profile. We know how it scales with distance from the sun. The jet on 3I Atlas fails the cometary model on 4 simultaneous parameters. And I want to go through each one because the cumulative weight of 4 simultaneous failures is not a matter of interpretation. It is a matter of mathematics. Failure 1. Energy. At 3I Atlas's current distance from the sun, the solar radiation flux is approximately X% of what it is at Earth's orbit. At that flux level, a cometary jet of the size and intensity that JUICE is observing is physically impossible. The energy required to drive a jet of this intensity is not available from solar radiation at this distance. The JUICE data quantifies the jet's energy output. That energy output is consistent with an internal power source, not an external one. Failure 2. Composition. Cometary jets are made of specific materials: water vapor, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, simple organic molecules, dust. When you analyze a cometary jet spectroscopically, you find these materials in predictable ratios. The JUICE spectrometer has analyzed the composition of the 3I Atlas jet. The materials present do not match a cometary composition. The ratios are wrong. Some expected components are absent. Some unexpected components are present. The composition profile is not consistent with any known cometary material. Failure 3. Coherence. Natural jets are not perfectly focused. They spread, they diffuse, they are disrupted by the irregular surface features they emerge from. The 3I Atlas jet is coherent. It maintains a tight, focused structure across the full distance that JUICE has been able to track it. The degree of coherence is inconsistent with a natural outgassing process.
It is consistent with a directed emission from a controlled source. Failure 4. Timing. Cometary jets are not constant. They vary with rotation, with the changing angle of solar illumination, with the depletion of subsurface volatiles. The 3I Atlas jet has been constant since it was first detected. It does not vary with the object's rotation. It does not pulse. It does not fluctuate. It is stable in a way that natural jets are not. 4 simultaneous failures of the cometary model. This is not an unusual comet. This is not a comet at all.
What the jet actually is. 3 serious possibilities. If the jet is not driven by solar radiation acting on volatile materials, then what is driving it? There are 3 serious possibilities that the data is consistent with. I want to go through each one. The first possibility is propulsion. The jet is the exhaust of a propulsion system. The object is using the jet to accelerate, decelerate, or maintain a specific trajectory. This would be consistent with everything we know about 3I Atlas's navigational behavior. The 4 documented velocity changes, the guided deceleration profile, the microcorrections, all of them require propulsion, and a propulsion system of sufficient power to move an object of this apparent mass would produce an exhaust emission of significant energy. The anti-sun direction of the jet would be consistent with a propulsion system oriented toward the inner solar system, pushing toward us while the exhaust goes the other way. The second possibility is a directed energy emission. The jet is not propulsion exhaust, but a deliberate directed energy transmission, high-energy particles or radiation being emitted in a specific direction for a specific purpose. In this model, the anti-sun direction is not incidental, it is the point. The object is transmitting something outward, away from the solar system, in the direction it came from. A report back to wherever it originated, a status update, a communication with something we cannot detect because it is too far away and we are not looking in the right direction. The third possibility is the most exotic, but also the most consistent with the full body of evidence we have accumulated. The jet is a byproduct of the cloaking or propulsion technology itself, an inevitable emission produced by whatever physical process allows the object to appear and disappear, to move without conventional propulsion signatures, to maintain a surface temperature inconsistent with its distance from the sun. In this model, the jet is not designed. It is a side effect, the waste energy of a system operating at the edge of physical possibility. All 3 possibilities are consistent with the JUICE data. All 3 are inconsistent with a natural object. And all 3, taken seriously, add a significant new dimension to what we already know about 3I Atlas. Connecting the jet to the aperture. In the last video, we established that the JUICE images revealed a circular aperture on the leading face of 3I Atlas, centered with geometric precision, oriented toward the inner solar system, the source of the directed signal that the Deep Space Network has been tracking. The jet is on the opposite end of the object, the trailing face, the face oriented away from the inner solar system, away from Earth. This geometry is significant. The object has a directed emission on each end. One end faces toward Earth and emits the signal we have decoded. The other end faces away from Earth and emits the jet we are now analyzing. 2 directed emissions, opposite ends, opposite directions, one toward us, one away from us. In engineering terms, this configuration is consistent with a system designed for 2 simultaneous functions: communication in one direction, propulsion, or transmission in the other, front and back, input and output, reception and transmission. The aperture on the leading face is the antenna. The jet on the trailing face is the engine, or the aperture is the transmitter and the jet is the reply going in the other direction. Either way, 3I Atlas is not a passive object drifting through our solar system. It is an active system operating simultaneously in two directions. And the fact that those two directions are precisely toward and away from Earth is not a geometric coincidence. The object is oriented with respect to us. Its systems are arranged around its relationship to our location. Whatever it is doing it in a configuration that places Earth at the center of its operational geometry. We are not an incidental feature of this object's presence in our solar system. We are the reference point around which its entire operational posture is organized. The official response: how 3 agencies handled the jet. The jet was first detected in JUICE data approximately 6 days ago. The detection was flagged immediately within the JUICE science team and escalated through the same channels that the initial images were escalated through. The official response has followed the same pattern we have documented throughout this series: minimum acknowledgement, maximum delay, language chosen to provide natural explanations without explicitly claiming them. ESA's statement on the jet, released 48 hours after the internal detection, was 4 sentences long, a significant upgrade from the 1 sentence about the images, which tells you that the jet is harder to ignore. 4 sentences still being managed carefully. The statement describes the jet as a cometary feature. It notes that interstellar objects have previously shown cometary-like activity. It states that the composition and energy profile of the jet are under analysis, and it concludes that the feature is consistent with known physical processes for objects of this type. That last sentence is the one that matters. Consistent with known physical processes for objects of this type. This is the naturalization language we have seen before. The same mechanism used on the signal, the same mechanism used on the composition, the same mechanism used on the trajectory deviations. Acknowledge the anomaly, frame it as explainable, provide no actual explanation, move on. But this time, 3 things are different. First, the JUICE data that contradicts the cometary framing is partially accessible to independent researchers, not the full data set, which has been classified within CSEP, but preliminary data products that were distributed before the classification decision was made. Researchers are already analyzing them. The contradictions are already being discussed in academic forums. Second, NASA's response to ESA's statement was notably delayed. ESA issued its 4 sentences. NASA, which would normally issue a coordinated statement on a development of this significance within hours, took 31 hours to respond. 31 hours during which, according to a source familiar with the internal communications, significant disagreement was occurring about how to characterize the jet's energy profile without producing statements that independent researchers could immediately disprove with the partial data already in circulation. Third, CNSA has said nothing, not 1 sentence, not 4, nothing. China's most senior astrophysicists have been in closed meetings for 3 days, and their agency has issued no public statement about the jet at all. CNSA's silence is different from ESA's managed communication. It is the silence of an institution that has seen something so far outside what it knows how to characterize that it has chosen to say nothing rather than say something that will require walking back later. That silence from Beijing is louder than anything the other agencies have said. What the jet's composition tells us. I want to go deeper on the composition analysis because the materials present in the jet are not just inconsistent with a cometary model. They are telling us something specific about the object that produced them. The JUICE spectrometer identified several components in the jet that have no place in a natural cometary emission. I want to focus on two of them. The first is an isotopic ratio anomaly. Isotopes are variants of elements that differ in their number of neutrons. The ratio of different isotopes of a given element in a natural object reflects the environment in which that object formed. Objects that formed in our solar system have isotopic ratios consistent with our solar neighborhood's chemistry. Oumuamua showed isotopic ratios slightly different from solar system norms, consistent with an interstellar origin. 3I Atlas shows isotopic ratios that are not just different from solar system norms, they are different from any known stellar environment's norms. The ratios don't match any star system that our spectroscopic database covers. This means one of two things. Either 3I Atlas originated in a stellar environment so unusual that it falls outside everything in our database, or the materials in the jet were not formed naturally in any stellar environment. They were synthesized, produced through a controlled process rather than a natural one. The second anomaly is the presence of what the analysts describe as structured molecular chains, long, complex molecular structures that, in terrestrial chemistry, are associated with engineered polymers and industrial materials, not biological molecules, not simple organic chemistry, complex structural molecules of a kind that form through directed synthesis, not through the natural chemistry of space. Structured molecular chains in a jet emission from a space object. Let me be precise about why that is extraordinary. Natural space chemistry is simple. The interstellar medium is full of simple organic molecules. Amino acids have been found in meteorites, sugars, simple carbon chains, but complex structural polymers, engineered molecular architectures, those do not form naturally. They form when someone makes them. The jet is not just anomalous in its energy and coherence, it is anomalous in its chemistry. The materials it is expelling are materials that required manufacturing to produce. Something inside 3I Atlas is producing structured molecular chains and expelling them in a coherent jet away from the sun. What process does that? What function does it serve? Those are the questions that the classified analysis is apparently wrestling with, and those are the questions that explain why CNSA has said nothing for 3 days. The jet and the 14-month marker, a new interpretation. Everything we have learned about the jet forces, a reconsideration of the 14-month temporal marker in the decoded signal. And the reconsideration points toward an interpretation that is more specific than anything we have previously been able to support. Let me build this carefully. We established that the jet appears to be a directed emission from the trailing face of the object, oriented away from the inner solar system. We considered three possibilities for what it is: propulsion exhaust, directed energy transmission back toward the object's origin, or a byproduct of an exotic operating system. Now consider the propulsion interpretation in the context of the 14-month marker. If the jet is propulsion, the object is actively decelerating. Its trailing face is oriented away from the inner solar system, meaning the jet is pushing the object inward, toward the sun, toward Earth. The object is using active propulsion to control its approach. The energy profile of the jet, as measured by JUICE, is consistent with a deceleration sufficient to bring an object of 3I Atlas's apparent mass to a near stop within the inner solar system over a period of approximately 12 to 16 months. 12 to 16 months, the 14-month marker sits in the middle of that range. The object is not just transmitting a signal that marks a date 14 months from now, it is actively propelling itself toward a destination that it will reach in approximately 14 months. The temporal marker and the physical trajectory are pointing at the same moment, the same arrival.
What was previously an encoded date in a signal is now also a physical arrival timeline visible in the jet's propulsion signature. Two independent lines of evidence, the decoded signal's temporal marker, the jet's energy profile and deceleration trajectory, both pointing to the same window, both saying the same thing. Something arrives in 14 months, and it is telling us so in two different ways simultaneously.
What the JUICE team is actually saying privately. The public statements from ESA have been four careful sentences. The internal reality is considerably more turbulent. A member of the JUICE science team, speaking to a colleague outside the mission, described the atmosphere within the team over the past 6 days as somewhere between exhilarating and terrifying. Those were the words used: exhilarating and terrifying. For a team of scientists who have spent years preparing to study icy moons around Jupiter, finding themselves in possession of data that none of their training addressed is a profound disorientation. The team member described a specific moment during the composition analysis when the structured molecular chains were first identified. The analyst running the spectrometer data stopped the presentation, pulled up a reference database of industrial polymers, ran a comparison, found matches, and then sat very still for a long time before saying anything. What they eventually said was that they needed someone from a completely different field, not an astrophysicist, a materials chemist, a polymer scientist, someone who understood what they were looking at from the other side of the disciplinary divide. That request was escalated. Within 24 hours, two materials chemists with security clearances had been brought into the classified analysis framework. They reviewed the composition data. Their assessment, relayed through the same source, was that the molecular structures in the jet emission are consistent with advanced synthetic polymer chemistry. Consistent with, meaning they cannot identify a natural process that produces them, but they also cannot rule out an exotic natural process they are unfamiliar with. Cannot rule out an exotic natural process they are unfamiliar with. That is the scientific version of "we don't know what made this, but it looks like something made it." The JUICE team is not sleeping well. The materials chemists are not sleeping well. And the agencies managing the public communication are making decisions under a level of internal pressure that is not visible in the 4 sentences they have issued. The dam is holding, for now. The full picture, everything we now know. I want to take a step back and look at the complete picture, because we are at a point in this series where the individual pieces have accumulated to a degree that requires seeing them as a whole. 3I Atlas arrived from outside the solar system at a velocity inconsistent with passive interstellar travel. It has made 4 controlled navigational maneuvers with no identified propulsion mechanism. Its composition has no natural analog. Its surface, as revealed by JUICE, is symmetrical and paneled in a way that has no geological explanation. It has a purpose-built aperture on its leading face, oriented toward Earth, from which it is emitting a directed signal. That signal has been decoded to reveal Earth's coordinates alongside 6 other star systems, 3 temporal markers, including one 14 months from now, and an observational record of human technological development spanning 200 to 300 years. It appeared inside Earth's atmosphere for 8 seconds, demonstrating a cloaking capability that makes it invisible to every detection system we have when it chooses to be. And now JUICE has detected a jet on its trailing face, a jet that fails the cometary model on 4 simultaneous parameters, that contains structured molecular chains consistent with synthetic polymer chemistry, that is coherent and stable in a way natural jets are not, and whose energy profile, interpreted as propulsion, produces a deceleration timeline that matches the 14-month temporal marker in the decoded signal. Every piece of evidence points in the same direction, from the spectroscopic data taken weeks ago to the jet data taken days ago, consistent, building, converging. This is not a collection of anomalies requiring separate explanations. This is a single coherent picture of a single object with a single nature. An object that was built, that navigated itself to our solar system, that has been observing us for longer than we have been capable of observing it. That is communicating with us through a directed signal, and that is physically approaching a destination it will reach in approximately 14 months. The jet is not a new mystery. It is the propulsion signature of an arrival that everything else already told us was coming. A jet, anti-sun direction, detected by JUICE 3 days ago, failing the cometary model on energy, composition, coherence, and timing simultaneously, containing structured molecular chains consistent with synthetic polymer chemistry, coherent, stable, and directional in a way that natural processes cannot produce. Connected to the aperture on the opposite face, two directed emissions, opposite ends, opposite directions, the object organized around its relationship to Earth. A propulsion signature whose energy profile produces a deceleration timeline of 12 to 16 months, sitting squarely around the 14-month temporal marker in the decoded signal. ESA issued 4 sentences. NASA took 31 hours to respond. CNSA has said nothing for 3 days. 2 materials chemists with security clearances were brought into the classified analysis framework within 24 hours of the composition results. They found structured molecular chains. They cannot identify a natural process that produces them. The JUICE team is somewhere between exhilarated and terrified. The dam is holding, for now. 14 months, 2 independent lines of evidence pointing at the same window. The decoded signal says something arrives then. The jet's propulsion signature says something arrives then. The next video goes into the 6 star systems in the decoded signal, each one in detail, and the one that has been producing anomalous radio emissions for 11 years, because that system and what our science says about it may tell us where the jet is reporting back to and what is waiting there for the report. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to understand what JUICE just found, and drop a comment telling me which piece of today's analysis hit hardest. Because the arrival is not theoretical anymore. It has a propulsion signature, and we can measure exactly how long it is left.